is already, So I'm going to try and mix between pictures, and then we'll go to a few videos in the short time that we have. Okay. Show video panel. There we go. Okay, good. I can see you. Okay, this is a famous picture of Yud Shvat, Tovshin, Yud Aleph Shvat, Tovshin Yud, Sunday, the Levaya of the Frierdiker Rebbe. In front of 770, and here you have the Orin with the Frierdiker Rebbe's kapota on top, which at one point apparently disappeared and showed up later. The Rebbe asked that whoever has it, should give it back. You can see people lined up along the way. The women were separate over there. And if you've ever seen the video, people from all Kreisen, there you can see all different types of Yidden that were there at the Levaya. There's a picture, but I couldn't find it. I was searching for it all evening. There is a picture of the Rebbe by the Tzion before the oil was built. The oil was finished being built just before Yud Shvat Tovshin Yud Aleph. And there is a picture of the Rebbe standing by the Tzion, but I couldn't find it to share it with you. So other than that, we have here a picture of the oil. This is already Yud Aleph Shvat Tovshin Yud Aleph. And if it's written, you can follow in the Yomans. It's very, very geschmack to read. There are different diaries, Yomanim, that are written, that are available, describing the events of Tovshin Yud Aleph and the beginning of the Rebbe's Nesiah, the official acceptance of the Nesiahs. And here we have, here's the Rebbe and Rabbi Chadakov. I don't know who this is. His Yankel Hecht. Here you have Label Groner, I think it's Rabbi Kazanovsky, or it could be Rabbi Groner's father. I don't know. Not a clear picture. And here the Rebbe has the papers, and he's tearing them up. All right. The photographer is behind the matzeva. Okay, these are a few pictures from then. These are pictures from different. This is Yud Shvat, Tovshin Tezayin. When this is already, you can see it's a hall. They would rent a hall a few times a year for the Fabrangans, and this is one of those occasions. Here we have the car coming at the Yud Shvat, Tovshin Chav Aleph, 1961. Here was already built for the Rebbe like a type of stender, a table for the Rebbe to be able to put his things down. It's cold. And in some of these pictures, you can see the Rebbe is wearing gloves. And then he would take off one glove when it came time to read and tear the panim. And the Rebbe is wiping his eyes. The Rebbe was in the oil with Chassidim. It was only twice a year. And that would be on Yud Shvat and on Erev Rosh Hashanah. Other than that, Chassidim would never go into the oil when the Rebbe was there. Chassidim had the understanding that you don't go in when the Rebbe is there. And if you had to go to the oil, it was a day of a chasana, whatever it was, everybody knew that you go earlier in the day before the Rebbe gets to the oil. So there's only twice a year when Chassidim were there together with the Rebbe in the oil. This is already davening in the old 770 before it grew. This is 1962, Yud Shvat Tovshin Chav Beis. But what I wanted to get to was Fabrangans of Yud Shvat. But here we have more of the oil, and here already we have this wooden thing, which is obviously changed. It's a different color. But here you can see on the side there's already a heater. At some point, you can see it a little bit over here as well. And at some point, they realized that Rebbe was standing for hours in the cold, so a heater was brought, and this was blowing hot air from the Rebbe's right shoulder. And my father told me, I heard from people how the Rebbe would come back in the winters. New York winters can get very, very cold. And when the Rebbe would come back from the oil, they could see Poshet on the Rebbe's right side was red from the heating, and the Rebbe's left side was blue from the cold. And there was Poshet Moisei Nefesh all the years going to the oil, especially when it was in the winter. And in those years, it wasn't like today where there's a nice smooth floor. All the years there was pebbles, and the Rebbe was wearing oil shoes on the pebbles, which wasn't necessarily leveled. But that's the way it was, because the oil was a place everyone was very careful not to touch or change anything. They didn't know how the Rebbe's reaction will be. There's a whole story of how when they put up in the early Lamids or late Chavs, I don't know if it's here. I didn't prepare all of this. This we can do another time. But there's a story of how they prepared the house, the little butkale for the Rebbe to be inside. They wanted simply to protect the Rebbe from the elements, but to make a change by the oil, everyone was very frightened. So what they did was they put this up and they put in the screws, but they left the screws very loose. Some bacharim. So that if the Rebbe comes and he's not happy with it, immediately, very quickly, they just pull out the screws and take it down and go. So they went the first time, and the Rebbe came in, and he didn't say anything. So that means that he accepted it. So they made it proper. And over the years, it was renovated and it was insulated, weatherized, and there was a heating. And in the summer, there was air conditioning. And over time, they made a window, and they made so that shouldn't blow in. And from below, there was a place for the Rebbe to be able to drop the panim in. Simply Pashat to be able to. The Chassidim were always looking to help the Rebbe Pashat in his gashmias, that everything should be okay. Okay. I want to share with you now a video, and we'll go through it a bit slowly. We have a few minutes. It's a long video. We're not going to do the whole video. And this is a video that was taken on Yud Shvat of Tovshin Nun Beis. That's 1992. Okay? I can send the link later on to everyone. It's an hour and a half video from the whole of Yud Shvat. But I want to take focus on the parts of going to the oil. We're going to jump through it. So here the Rebbe is coming out in the afternoon of Yud Shvat to go to the oil. And the Rebbe is giving tzedakah to anyone who was there. Usually it was nickels. So beforehand they tried to get people who were standing there to move away. As you can see, the Rebbe Gurn is not happy. This guy crawled in because they didn't want the Rebbe should have to stand long and it's not in the cold. This is the photographer, the chariot. The Rebbe would sit in the front seat when he went to the oil. The home back was always in the back seat or to the mikveh. Now you can see over here the Rambam. Not the Rebbe had the Rambam in the later years on the dashboard. The Rebbe would sit in the front seat only to the oil and back. Here's the Rambam. The Rebbe's Rambam La'am. One day we'll do a session on Rambam. I'll tell you a story about that. This year of Toshin Nun Beis, they did a camera crew came to do a biography of the Rebbe, and the Rebbe allowed. And they went along to the oil. This is by a red light. At some point along the way, before the Rebbe started learning Rambam, he was talking with the driver, with Rabbi Krinsky. The music is in the background in the car. This is the raw footage of it.
Right there, Jared. Right
and here they're already looking into the Rambam. And this is already going through Atlantic Avenue.
Difficult to do, but you're passing right there.
Going to the oil, and if you watch the whole video, the back and forth, and Belt Parkway traffic. Here now they arrive in the oil. Remember, in those years there wasn't the oil as we have today. It was a house and the school, so the car went straight in. Each Shvat, so there's a lot of people there. You see there, the Rebbe is holding over here is the Minor Loshen, and beneath it is a sefer. I don't know what it is. Is it the Rambam? It could be maybe the Rambam. I'm not sure. But that's the Rebbe's Minor Loshen. And the bags with the panim came in for it. Even there, like I said earlier, only a new Shvat, no Rosh Hashanah. This is the room. You can see on top here is the air conditioning, the heating. There's going to be a desk. There's an extender there. You can see pushing to make it. This is already later years. to make it much easier for the Rebbe. Many people are saying minor Lashon is speaking of the Rebbe as well. The Rebbe was in there. He didn't pay attention to anybody who was around. The Rebbe was busy with his thing. Here's a plastic covering the glass window. Gives the Rebbe some privacy. The Rebbe is closed or opened. I don't know what. And the Rebbe starts saying the minor Lashon. And at some point, the minor Lashon, Rebbe will take out the panim and move on to the panim. So this is through the plastic, not a very clear video. And the Rebbe would be there. Shkia came. It went long after Shkia into the dark. What I want to share with you now is, this is already late at night. It's already dark. The Rebbe is reading letter after letter after letter. The Rebbe has his glasses on. And this went on in those years. And in Beis already, there was going 3-4 days a week. He was going to the oil like this. And at the end here, we'll get to there in a minute. You see the panim, they were sending out the panim through here. That's where they would put them out. Okay, after this, we can jump forward now. Okay, now it's already late at night. The lights, there was no lighting like there is today. And everyone is gone. But the Rebbe is still there. And inside the Rebbe's room, the lights are on. And the Rebbe is still, you can see, bent over, standing ready for a number of hours. And this is what it was like on a regular day when the Rebbe was there, quiet and empty, the Rebbe alone. Now at the end of this piece, there's quite an interesting little right here. So it's already dark, sun is set, it's already late, and the Rebbe was getting ready to leave. I don't know how they knew when the Rebbe was getting ready to leave, but they already, he was able to see Rabbi Krinsky. And here, he's going in, and you can see here, he leaves the door a bit opened, and the Rebbe is already packing up and finishing. Some of the papers are coming back, so he's coming to take the things to the car, whatever the Rebbe had prepared to bring back with him. He's still wearing his glasses. There was like a newspaper that someone sent it over. Looks like finishing the minor Lashon. Now, if you notice, the Rebbe is not wearing a gartel. The pot is open. And this was an interesting thing. The Rebbe wore a gartel to the oil one day a year, and that was on Erev Rosh Hashanah. Otherwise, the Rebbe would not wear a gartel by the oil, which is quite an interesting thing. Opa. Okay. And now we hand over to Rabbi Gerari. Shalom Aleichem. Guten Abend.
Gewenst dir. בהשגחה פרטי ist We are going through the Yud Gimel Ikrem, and the Ikr that we're up to is about the Emunah in Moshe Rabbeinu, that he was the Av of all the Rabban Shekol HaNeviim, and we're going to talk about it. But Hashgacha Pratius, we are now right before Yud Shvat, and Yud Shvat for us Hasidim, it has a double meaning. It is the Yom Histalkos of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and it is the day that the Rebbe became Rebbe, our Nasi, our Rebbe. It's interesting to note that when it came to Beis Nissim, which the Chlal Beis Nissim is the day, was always understood as the day, Yom Hilul of the Rebbe Rashab. But the Rebbe looked at Beis Nissim, that's the day when the Rebbe, Frierdiker Rebbe became Rebbe. And that was his koch about Beis Nissim. So we have to follow in the way the Rebbe taught us. So by us, Yud Shvat is the day that we have our Rebbe. And till this day, he's our Rebbe, our Nasi of this generation. And this all happened on Yud Shvat. I just want to go through, before we go into the Chassidus of Yud Shvat, I just want to try to share with you a little bit of my experiences all the years about Yud Shvat. We are not shaychus to really understand a Rebbe, and it's not even begether to say we don't understand, because it's not begether to understand or not to understand. You can't say I don't understand. A Rebbe is bechlal and a whole different gather. But what we did see by the Rebbe Yud Shvat, the seriousness of the day was moired. And when the Rebbe used to come into davening, it was a whole different matzav of also, I always remember that the Ikar Galuyim, what we could say Galuyim, was when the Rebbe came back from the oil on Yud Shvat, the mincha that he davened, the following the oil. And I remember this very clearly, that many times the Rebbe used to cry by Shmoneh Esrei, Be'ikar dat mincha. The mincha after the oil was a special time, and the Rebbe would break down crying many times in the middle of davening. But everyone felt that Yud Shvat to the Rebbe was a moedik day, like maybe Rosh Hashanah. The Rebbe Rosh Hashanah, the first night, the Rebbe used to come out and to davening, and when he ended the davening, the Rebbe's face was ma'uyim, was mamish mighty, and this was something that we all noticed. It wasn't something that it was very, very clear. I remember in my younger years, this was an exception, that the Rebbe, after davening Rosh Hashanah Ma'ariv, he was very, very serious. How he said, L'shana Tova Tekasev, it's a chasim. But there was one time that there was there Professor Green, and the Rebbe saw him, and Rebbe smiled to him. For the Rebbe to smile Rosh Hashanah, the night of Rosh Hashanah was like, we couldn't even, it was like unheard of. So that was, the Rebbe should smile to somebody Rosh Hashanah, it was already a very big thing. I also remember.
Gerari,
Yeah.
If you don't mind, just quickly, just to interrupt, I'm sorry. Moshe Herson tells you comparing that Yud Shvat was the Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah.
So Moshe Herson tells a story that he once had written something to the Rebbe and he wasn't getting an answer. And Rebbe Chadakov told him that he should write again after Yud Shvat, while Yud Shvat baiten zachin yonim. That's what Rebbe Chadakov told him. So try again after Yud Shvat. So
wow. That's very, very interesting. Speaking about Rosh Hashanah, I also want to mention that there was one year, I'm not a historian, I don't know what year, but I was there and I remember it was something going on in Eretz Yisrael, the matzav in Eretz Yisrael, and the Rebbe said to sing Hoshia Samecha. Hoshia Samecha, Rosh Hashanah, it was like unbelievable. Everyone understood something is going on, but that's how serious it was. And to sing a Shia Samecha is a little bit of a lively song. It was like very, very outstanding. And Rosh Hashanah, and I was saying, the Rebbe was also like that on Yud Shvat. I think I once mentioned this on this talk on this conference with people here in Manchester, that I believe this was in the very early years. The Rebbe used to try to come back from the oil still before the Shkia. And one time the Rebbe came in the early years and it was kind of late. And my father was standing right there. And the Rebbe asked him, what time is the Shkia? But he was a Murdik, a Chassid, and a Murdik, a Mekusha. He understood what the Rebbe was. So he answered on the spot 10 minutes after the Rebbe finished his mincha. And the Rebbe smiled, but like he wanted to hear that. But I'm just saying is, you have to be a real chassid to a real mekusher to be mechaven what the Rebbe wants to hear. And this was like a spontaneous reaction. The Rebbe is asking what time is the skier, you got to answer. But on the other hand, so he said 10 minutes after the Rebbe finishes down. Okay. What I do want to share about Yud Shvat. The Rebbe, many times, when he verbringt already Shabbos Mevorchim Yud Shvat, was already Hachana to Yud Shvat. So I don't remember how many times, but the Rebbe was demanding from Hasidim to give a din v'cheshbon. And he wanted one time, again, I'm not a historian, but there was a time that he wanted to get from Hasidim Biksav, they should write how many Hasidim did they bring to the Rebbe Deshver? Meaning, did you ever bring the Hasidim to the Frierdiker Rebbe? And I also know of a story. This is also interesting. I think the Rebbe wanted minimum of 10. And one Chassid wrote 10. And the Rebbe later answered, or he said, don't count this man. For some reason, you can't count him. Like, the credit is not due to you yet. But I'm just saying is, this was the Rebbe demanded from Hasidim before Yud Shvat. This is a time to give a din v'cheshbon. This is a time to check on our own hiskashris and what did we do to bring Chasidim? To bring Chasidim, meaning be mekarev to Chassidus and miskarev to the Rebbe, which is one Indian. So it's not a celebration, we're Humpty Dumpty. It's a cheshbon nefesh. Like Rosh Hashanah, you have to Elul, there's a cheshbon nefesh. The Rebbe wanted Chasidim before Yud Shvat to give a cheshbon nefesh and to take on new hachlotas. There was 1 year going way early. That Yud Shvat, the Rebbe was up in a very, I don't know what words, he had a lot of tightness on Chasidim. And in the middle of the Farbrengen, he was talking why we're not going on Shlichus, and with a lot of tightness. And with tightness that some people were chapping Shrayim, and that's not our avoid. Yud Shvat was a serious time to check. We have to check where we're standing. So we also, me and everybody that's listening, the Achanis is not just getting an aliyah, learning Basilagani, and all these things. Of course, that's whatever we were told to do. We're soldiers, we have to do. But the Iker Shebe'Iker is to make a cheshbon nefesh. Am I living the way the Rebbe wants me to live? And that is called soul searching. We have to make a real cheshbon nefesh. Are we now? This Basiligani is very powerful mimer. There are things in this mimer. Everybody knows the mashal of a melech who's going out on war to be menatzeach, that he opens up the treasures that he was never opened up for no one. And he pours those treasures to win the Milchama. And in the mashal, the melech himself puts himself in sakanah, and he goes into this war. He's talking to us. We are the soldiers. We're the Tzivos Hashem. He entrusted these Hasidim. We are the soldiers of Lochemes Beis David. The Rebbe himself goes with us, as the Rebbe said many times to different shluchim. I'm sure you heard the story that there was one of the shluchim, the Rebbe's shluchim, Rabbi Yitzchak Groner, who was once on Yechidus, and the Rebbe wanted him on the way back to Australia. The Rebbe always used to give him extra work, that on the way he should stop off, and if he has to stop off, or he should make sure to stop off and see what he could do with some Mekarav Yidden on the way. So he tells this story that once when he was going back to Australia, the Rebbe wanted to ask him if he could stop at a certain country, certain place, and at the moment he was a little bit hesitant. Maybe he wasn't feeling well, or he was overloaded, overburdened with all the inyanim that were going on in Australia. But in middle, the Rebbe saw on his face, or he saw through, that he's hesitant of now stopping off. It was a whole big nasi in the olden days to go back to Australia or coming was a very long nasi. And here the Rebbe is giving him extra work on the way. But the Rebbe said, in Yiddish, he said, and what will be if I will go with you? When he heard those words, the Rebbe says, I'll go with you. He broke down crying and he ran out of the Yechidus. He got so emotional that the Rebbe is saying such words to him, I'll go with you, so you have nothing to worry. But this is a very powerful story. So when it says in Basiligani is the mashal that the melech alone it goes to the Muhammad, the Rebbe goes with each chassid. If he's going in the Rebbe's, what the Rebbe wants from me, he's with the Rebbe. And I think I shared this with you myself. When I was in Buffalo, I had a very, very difficult time being every Shabbos, every Yom Tov, and all my life on Yom Tovim, I was always, I was alone. There was not a from a Yid in sight, and I had to create everything from scratch, every Shabbos, every Yom Tov. So I once wrote to the Rebbe, then comes a Yom Tov or a Shabbos, I feel very, very lonely. So the Rebbe said to me on Yechidus, I hope everyone will listen good. The Rebbe said to me that being that you're doing the work of the Rebbe the Shver, so being that you're doing the work of the Rebbe the Shver, so he is with you. And then the Rebbe ended, und wir seinen euch zusammen. You hear what's going on? The Rebbe said, we are together. So we are learning now the Basiligani, we're getting ready for Yud Shvat. This is the most powerful thing it says in this Maimah. The Oitzris, it seems like from the Rebbe in some Maimarim, that the Oitzris, that the Melech is mevazviz, this is Chassidus. This is the deep Rosei Day Rosin of the Torah. This is Torah Shel Mashiach, and this is being poured to win the war, to bring Mashiach. And the Rebbe is saying that he is going with us. Is there anything more? What could he say more? There's nothing more. So we have a gewaltige acharayas. Every one of us who is listening has to understand we are drafted in the army. If you like it or you don't like it, we are in the army. And the Melech is counting on his soldiers. He's giving everything he has to give it to us, but it's up to us. We have to take the blame. If Mashiach is not here yet, everybody has to point to themselves. They can't say, oh, well, look in the mirror. Are you doing whatever you can? You're full of baloney, you're hacks and chinik. If you would take seriously what the Rebbe said, you would have you couldn't rest a day. You would be a whole day. You would be you're in the army. There's a soldier. The Frierdiker Rebbe writes he could tell even in his sleep that he's a soldier. Are we sleeping like that? Even when we are awake, do we take ourselves seriously? What achrayus we have? That the Rebbe is counting on us? That we're going to do the final touch? Are we having Mesiras Nefesh? Every Yud Shvat, when the Rebbe would talk about the Frierdiker Rebbe, what was the highlight that he would say? That his whole Metzius was Mesiras Nefesh. That's how he presented to us the Frierdiker Rebbe. And that's what he asked from the Hasidim. Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh means you give over your will. Whatever the Rebbe wants, I'm there. And the soldier is not asked, are you in the mood? How do you feel today about it? You do whatever you're told, and that's it. So we have a lot of soul searching to do this week. We're already in the week of Yud Shvat. The Rebbe knows everything. He knows every guy, what he's doing. You can't fool him. He has high expectations because he gives us so much. He knows that we could do it. It's not that he's overestimating. He knows exactly each and every one of us. So we have to do a hachana to Yud. There is the Pearl Mamishtika things that we could do, but the main thing to do is to re-register in the army. When comes this Yud Shvat, we have to be ready to tell the Rebbe, yes, I'm taking on upon myself, I am your soldier. You could count on me. You know, there's a niggin, I'm sure you know this, but there's a niggin, I think the niggin goes Dunai, 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 do. Everyone knows the niggin? The niggin, they say, and everybody, I have here historians who know much better than me, but there's a story that there was a maise that the king needed soldiers to go through a water in order to drown and to there'll be so many soldiers in the water that the next soldier will be able to go over this water. So there's a whole niggin that they sang, they knew that that's where they're going. This is a type of soldier. A soldier is, you don't ask questions, it's not about you, it's about the kavanah, it's about the Eibishter. Ani nevreisi l'shamash eskoini. We have to be ready to tell the Rebbe this Yud Shvat, what was, but now I'm giving myself over to you. You know, I'm sure you know because you have here somebody who's keep on telling us history. But in Yud Shvat is the time the Rebbe was mekabel in the seas. In order to be mekabel in the seas, there was a ksav hiskashrus. Chassidim had to write to the Rebbe that take upon themselves whatever the Rebbe will say they're going to do. This thing is chayzer every year, goes again. Again, we have to register. And again, the Rebbe now wants to say, no, let me see now, are you sure you're committing yourself? Everyone is counting on us, all the doires. The Rebbe is counting on us. We cannot let him down. He's giving everything he has to us. He deserves our total commitment to do whatever he wants us to do, to live like Chassidim, to have Avos Yisrael, to be Mekarev as much as we can, another Yid and another Yid, and to bring them closer to Chassidus. In order to bring another Yid closer to Chassidus, you yourself have to be verbrennt. You can't expect to bring another person to Chassidus unless you yourself are on fire. So we have to get on fire. And then we're able to have an impact on more and more Yidden to learn Chassidus. Every Yid that you introduce them to Chassidus, you're introducing them to life. Torah is life. I once did a sichet, even printed, you're mekasher a person to Chassidus, you're connecting him to the Eibishter, you're connecting him to life. It's pikuach nefesh. So who's supposed to do it? The Chassidim who learn themselves Chassidus and live like Chassidim, they are the ones who are supposed to get more and more and more Yidden excited about learning Chassidus and living like Chassidim. Ad Kan is a few words of inspiration. I hope that I am inspiring you a little bit. So let's go back now to Moshe Rabbeinu to understand this Ikar, one of the Yud Gimel Ikrim that we have to know the uniqueness of Moshe Rabbeinu. First of all, why is it negate? Moshe Rabbeinu, l'chiyore, somebody in the past. So he was great, he was the highest prophet, the greatest. What does this have to do with me? So first of all, it's Pashit, a part of the Yud Gimel Ikra. And believe it or not, there are so many Yidden, unfortunately, who don't even know what do we believe about Moshe Rabbeinu. First of all, people who are involved in being Makarev non-religious Yidden, people don't even know that Matan Torah was not received by Moshe Rabbeinu alone. The average Jew, unfortunately, thinks, oh yeah, Moses went up to Sinai, he heard it. That's not what happened. The Torah says that the Eibishter spoke to the all Klal Yisrael. And that's what it means. Ata haresa ladas. Ata goes on the Yidden. You Jews, Ata, Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, you are shown. The revelation was to all of you. That's very, very important. People don't even know that. Everybody saw the same thing and heard the same thing. Number two, how do we know if Moshe was for real? Maybe he made it up. Maybe he was taking a smoking pot up there and he's coming down saying here the Torah. What else is news? Says the Rambam. No, the same voice that said the Ten Commandments, the same voice was heard by Klal Yisrael. And the Eibishter singled out Moshe in front of all the Jews and said, and you stay up here, and I'm going to teach you the rest. So this is very, very important to know. We believe in Moshe because we heard God confirm him, not because Moshe said. He said, a lot of people could say they spoke to God, but no. We heard the same Hashem who said the Ten Commandments. The same Hashem in front of everybody said, you remain on the mountain, I'll teach you the rest. So when Moshe remained on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights and had a crash course from Hashem, and he came down and he started telling us more commandments, there wasn't a Jew who had a question, hey, maybe you made this up. They heard Hashem say to Moshe, I'll teach you the rest. So this is a Yisod, a Ikar in the whole Judaism. That everything that Moshe said, we know it came from Hashem. And the Rambam alone says that from that point on, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't have to make any miracles anymore. There's nothing more to prove. We heard Hashem say that to you. So what till Moshe Rabbeinu was at Matan Torah, he had to make this miracle, that miracle. But once there was Matan Torah, we know firsthand that everything Moshe Rabbeinu later taught came from God. And now we'll go into much more details about Moshe Rabbeinu. We know, and it's in a lot of prayers and things, Moshe emes v'toirosoi emes. Moshe Rabbeinu is associated with emes. So what? What does the word emes mean? on the overtly, emes means it's not a lie. But Chassidus says, no, something may not be a lie, but it's far from emes. So what is emes? How do you define emes? In English, truth means the opposite of a lie. But it's incorrect. It's much more, infinitely more, than that it's not a lie. Chassidus explains that there's something in between a lie and the truth, an emes. And that is cause of. What's this word, cause of? There is sheker, and then there is cause of. Cause of means something that is dependent on something else for its existence. Then it's cause of. It can't exist on its own. It's dependent on something. No matter what it is, if it's dependent on something, so he alone is not emes. He has no existence. He's only there because he's dependent on something else. Emes is really in the Yerushalmi. The Mokkah is a Gemara in the Yerushalmi that the word emes has the first and middle and last letter of the Aleph base. Why? Because emes means something that never changes, something that could change, even if it's at the way end. But if it could change, it was never true emes in the first place. Emes means it's always the same. To give you an example, something could be eternal, never end, and it still is dependent on something like Hashem who created it. For instance, the planets, the Tzavah HaShamayim, are eternal, but they didn't create themselves. Hashem had to create the Tzavah HaShamayim. So they are dependent on Hashem. They're dependent and they're not really emes. There is a place where they're not, where before they began. So they're not always there. They're only there when they began. There was a time that they were not here before Hashem created them. Emes means they were always around and they'll always be. You could be always, but you have a tchila, you have a beginning. But something that doesn't have no beginning and no end, that's the sign that it's emes. It's always there, was always there, and will always be there. And that's the madrege of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu represents emes. We find this in many, many ways, but we find it right in the beginning of the Torah and Pasha Shmos, when Moshe Rabbeinu was born. From day one, the Torah tells us that the whole house, Nismale Habayis Kula Yoira. From day one, he didn't even have a chance to do anything yet. He's a baby. From day one, the whole house lit up. Beruchnius. Which means that Moshe Rabbeinu was from the beginning till he was always very holy, to such extent that Nismala Habayis Kula Oiga. That is also why we find that the Torah said that Moshe never died. And there's a whole arichas about this. I don't know if we have now the time to talk about it, but why Take, Dafke Moshe Rabbeinu? because Moshe Rabbeinu represents Emes. Emes can never cease to exist. So Moshe Rabbeinu, from the beginning till the end, he's always the same and no change. B'meileh, if he is Emes, he is the one who gives us the Torah. Moshe kibel Torah Mesinai. Torah is eternal. Torah doesn't have a beginning because Torah existed beyond the world. Torah is not just a guide how to live our lives. The Torah existed before there was a world. So it's not only to be it's not only a guide how to do mitzvahs. So it's Torah's the Eibishter words. The Eibishter always was. The Torah always was, and that is why we're not up to that ikka yet. But that's really why the Rambam says HaTorah loy tehei muchlefes. Torah cannot be changed. Not just the Torah will not change. It's impossible for it to change because Torah is the Eibishter in words. The Eibishter cannot change, so the Torah cannot change. And that's the madrega of Moshe Rabbeinu. And speaking about Yud Shvat, that is the Taich Rebbe. The Rebbe, as we talked about, that second perek of Tanya explains that in every generation there has to be a Moshe Rabbeinu. And his madrege is Chachmid Atzilis. And so what? Call him whatever you want. No. Chachmid Atzilis says the Alter Rebbe in perek Lamed Hey in the Hagor. Kabalti Mimoiri. I received this from my teacher, the Mizritcher Maggid. What is Chachmid Atzilis? Chachmid Atzilis is the Eibishter, the pure Eibishter. Nothing else. Hu levadai hu v'yein zulasai. That's Chachmid Atzilis. And that's the madrega of Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's when the Gemara says, how do you be hadrik betamidei chachamim? We're talking about a Talmid Chacham who's in the madrega of Chachmid Atzilis, which in Chinese, this is the Moshe Rabbeinu. So what does this help us? So the Rebbe is called Emes. So what? We have to understand that the Taich Rebbe, as I mentioned, I think last week, if I'm not mistaken, we're not building up the Rebbe. We're saying just the opposite, that a Rebbe doesn't have his own Metzias B'chlal. The Eibishter shines through him. The emes of the Eibishter is expressed through a Rebbe. B'meileh, Yud Shvat, when we're talking about a skashres to a Rebbe, we're talking about a skashres to the Eibishter. The Friedeker Rebbe once said, he didn't have to say it, but he said it, so now it's printed. Be mikusha to me, so you will be mikusha to who I'm mikusha. When you mekusha to a Rebbe, you're not mekusha to a second party, chas v'sholom. This is a taich. A Rebbe is no metzias. He has no own metzias. The Eibishter made that there has to be a madrega on this world of Chachmid Atzilis, and by us being mekusha to the madrega of Chachmid Atzilis, we're mekusha to what shines in Chachmid Atzilis. Let me try to bring this down a little more down to earth. When the Rebbe gives us a hayrah, the Rebbe teaches us something and he wants us to do something. we have to understand that this is the words of the Eibishter. It's not we're listening to our Rebbe. We're listening to what's coming from through his mouth. That means we're listening to the Eibishter. And listening to the Eibishter is not because it's good, it's helpful, it's a good idea. It's shtusim to say that. This is the Eibishter, what the Eibishter says. This is what he wants us to do. And it's emes through and through. And this brings me into another, I don't know how much time we still have, but in Chassidus, there is an idea of emes, and then there is emes le'amitoi. How could it be more emes than emes? So it means emes le'amitoi. What's going on over here? And it's in the Gemara, and it's halacha is emes le'amitoi. What does that mean, emes le'amitoi? If it's a little bit sheker, it's not emes. If it's emes, it's complete emes, as we just mentioned. So what's the taich emes le'amitoi? And Chassidus explains when something that looks like a menage to the emes, and even that is realized that's emes, that's the highest level of emes. That sheker, like in Basiligani, you take from the kroshim the same letters as keresh, sheker, and you make this a keresh. That's emes lamitoi. You take the oilam hazeh, which is oilam hasheker, and you connect it to the Eibishter. You bring out the Eibishter even in the sheker. That's called emes le'amitoi. And that's our avodah. What's left in the Rebbe's emes, the Eibishter's emes. But he wants it should be nizgaled emes le'amitoi, that the sheker becomes emes. Nizgaled that it's not sheker, that it's really emes. And then it's emes le'amitoi. So in conclusion, we have a lot of homework to do. There's no time to waste. Every day now is a countdown, getting closer and closer to Yud Shvat, which is the Nesius of the Rebbe, and the time of drafting the Chassidim in to be the Anshe Chayil, the Tzivas Hashem. And the Rebbe is going to bless us on this day. The Rebbe used to say, now, Yud Shvat, it says it's a lashon from the Alter Rebbe, Igeres HaKodesh, Poyel Yeshuos B'kerev ha'aretz. That a tzaddik on the day of his Stalkos, or the day of the Rebbe becomes the seers of the Rebbe, he's poyel by everyone the biggest Yeshuos. The Rebbe takes us with him and brings us up, and gives us everything he has, he gives away to Chassidim. There's nothing missing as far as what the Rebbe is giving. He's giving more than he ever gave. Every year he's moisef and moisef and moisef. We could learn from how the Rebbe talked about the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Rebbe said that the Frierdiker Rebbe is getting more and more active as the years go on. How dumb could we be? We have to hear the Rebbe's words. The Rebbe is more active with his Hasidim and giving us more than he ever gave. So we have no lack of all the brachas and all the yeshuas, everything we have. But we shouldn't forget that it's made to use and to maximize all the koiches and brachas that the Rebbe gives us for Bonne, Chayim, Zoyne, Reviche. The Rebbe wants the best for us, everything in the best way. And he's now resting, and he's being mispalel for us, giving us whatever he can. But he's asking from us, but do the mission that I gave you. Don't let me down. I'm counting on you. L'chaim, l'chaim, everyone should be blessed with brachas ad beli dai. Good night. Good year.
Good night. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Merari. Next week it's going to be Yud Aleph Shvat.
So nochecha, you know, by the it keeps on going better, higher. Yud Aleph and nochecha b'yud. So we're not going down, we're going up. So stay tuned. We'll see what happens next week.